My name is Daniel Harris, 35 years old, and for the last 3 years I've worked in quality assurance at IronClad Dynamics, a mid-sized manufacturing firm specializing in precision components for the auto industry. I thought I had a stable career, until the day I overheard a conversation that shattered everything I believed about loyalty, work, and trust. It happened on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. I'd gone to refill my coffee when I caught the faint rhythm of Mandarin floating from the break room. Normally, I wouldn't have stopped, except the voices belonged to Martin Graves, my direct manager, and Mr. Zhao, the visiting CEO from our Chinese parent company. I froze outside the doorway, out of sight, just close enough to catch the words. "We'll cut him next week," Martin said smoothly in Mandarin. He was talking about me. They thought it was private, that no one nearby understood the language. But they didn't know my history. I'd lived in Shanghai as a teenager when my father worked abroad for a supplier. 5 years in that city had given me more than memories. It gave me fluency in Mandarin and the ability to listen without being noticed. Standing there, I understood every syllable. They were plotting my termination. I should have recognized the signals sooner. For months, Martin had been quietly pushing me to the sidelines. He excluded me from client calls, dismissed my suggestions in meetings, and increasingly slipped into Mandarin when speaking with leadership, assuming it was his shield against scrutiny. Earlier that same morning, he'd assigned me to train a newcomer, Ethan Cole, a bright 23-year-old engineering graduate. "Help him learn the ropes," Martin had said casually. I should have realized then. Why bring in fresh blood and hand me the responsibility of transferring all my knowledge, if not to replace me? I went back to my desk in a fog, staring out through the glass partition at the manufacturing floor below. Machines hummed steadily, turning raw steel into intricate auto components. I'd helped streamline those operations, saving the company nearly $200,000 last year alone through process improvements. But apparently, that didn't matter. To Martin, I was expendable. He wanted me to train Ethan thoroughly, hand over everything I knew, and then fade out quietly. My father had once trusted loyalty to protect him too. Back when I was 16, I watched him train his replacement at a plant in Vancouver, believing his dedication would be rewarded. 6 months later, he was unemployed, his sacrifice ignored. I swore then I would never let anyone use me the same way, and yet, here I was, walking the same path. That night, instead of heading home, I stayed late at the office. Under the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional footsteps of security, I began digging through access logs, system records, and approval chains. If Martin was willing to dispose of me so easily, I needed to know what else he was hiding. What I discovered unsettled me. Financial discrepancies, expense reports for trips that hadn't occurred, vendor invoices I'd never heard of. The more I looked, the more I realized Martin's plan to fire me wasn't just a cost-cutting maneuver. It was cover. He wasn't eliminating me for efficiency. He was eliminating me because I was the one person with the skills and the patience to notice what he'd been stealing. Martin's strategy became clear as I pieced it together. For months, he'd been isolating me from decision-making, rerouting projects, even taking credit for discoveries I'd made. His true goal was simple: erase my visibility, transfer my knowledge to Ethan, and make my termination look like a natural restructuring. But the numbers told a darker story. He'd been funneling money into fake vendor accounts, manipulating expense claims, and quietly padding his own pocket with sums carefully kept below auditing thresholds. In total, close to $300,000 over the last 2 years. The arrogance of it, the sheer confidence that no one would notice. The following Monday, Ethan showed up eager, polite, and enthusiastic. Martin introduced us. "Daniel's our best man in quality control," he told Ethan. "He'll teach you everything you need to know." I shook Ethan's hand, smiling warmly while bitterness churned in my gut. He had no idea he was being groomed as my replacement. For the first week, I played my role faithfully, showing him our testing protocols, introducing him to suppliers, and guiding him through our software. But beneath that, I was running my own tests, raising subtle questions during team meetings, hinting at invoice discrepancies, watching Martin squirm whenever the subject veered too close to his fraud. His denials came quickly. "Not your concern, Daniel. Focus on engineering, not accounting." His voice would tighten, his eyes dart nervously before he shifted the conversation elsewhere. To the untrained ear, it sounded authoritative. To me, it sounded like fear. Midway through the second week, Ethan made an offhand comment that changed everything. "Funny thing," he said, while we reviewed supplier records. "Mr. Graves recruited me personally at a job fair, said they needed someone with my background, engineering degree, Mandarin fluency and all that." I froze. Mandarin fluency. Martin had never mentioned that to me. Why would a quality engineering position require Chinese language skills unless Martin was grooming Ethan not just as my replacement, but as his future bridge to Mr. Zhao and the other executives? That's when I realized Martin's plan wasn't small. He was positioning himself for a regional promotion. Ethan wasn't just a cheaper employee. He was Martin's tool to consolidate power. By then, I had already gathered weeks of evidence: fake vendors with fabricated business registrations, expense reports for phantom conferences, payroll adjustments Martin had slipped through himself, emails showing his ambitions to rise to regional operations director. Piece by piece, I built a dossier strong enough to withstand scrutiny from auditors, attorneys, even law enforcement. By the third week of Ethan's training, Martin finally revealed his intentions openly. In his office, his tone falsely sympathetic. "Daniel, we're restructuring," he said. "Ethan's skills make him ideal for our new direction. Your role will be eliminated Friday after Mr. Zhao's visit. But don't worry, we'll give you severance and a glowing recommendation. Nothing personal." I nodded, feigning calm. Inside, my heart hammered, but not with fear, with certainty, because I wasn't walking into Friday defenseless. I was walking in armed with truth. Thursday morning arrived. Mr. Zhao walked in for his quarterly review, greeted warmly by Martin, who spoke to him in brisk Mandarin about cost savings and operational successes. 30 minutes later, I knocked on their conference room door. Martin opened it, annoyed. "Daniel, we're busy. This isn't the time." I held up a thick folder and switched seamlessly to Mandarin. "Mr. Zhao, I have financial irregularities to report, unauthorized vendor payments, expense manipulations, over the last 2 years." The silence in that room was electric. Zhao's eyes widened, Martin's face drained of color. "You speak Mandarin?" Zhao asked slowly. "Fluently," I answered. "I lived in Shanghai as a teenager, and I've understood every word of your private conversations." Martin stammered. "He's lying, Zhao. He's just bitter about being let go." But I was already handing Zhao the documents: fake invoices, payroll manipulations, proof of Martin's schemes. Zhao read silently, his expression hardening with each page. "You told me these were legitimate suppliers," Zhao said, his voice like ice. "They don't exist," I replied simply. "The bank accounts lead back to Martin." The next 2 hours unraveled Martin's career. Zhao summoned corporate attorneys, financial auditors, and even pulled Ethan into the room to confirm Martin had recruited him for his Mandarin ability. The evidence was undeniable. By mid-afternoon, Martin was escorted out of IronClad Dynamics in disgrace, his accounts frozen, and charges filed for fraud and embezzlement. His dreams of promotion collapsed into a criminal indictment. 3 months later, Martin pled guilty. 4 years in prison, restitution that would financially ruin him, his name blacklisted in the industry. IronClad, meanwhile, offered me the management position Martin had coveted: higher salary, greater responsibility. I accepted, but only with one condition: transparent financial oversight and independent auditing. No one person would ever wield unchecked power again. Ethan stayed too, continuing under my guidance, this time as a legitimate apprentice, not an unwitting pawn. 6 months later, I stood once again in that same glass-walled conference room, watching the factory floor below. Workers moved steadily, machines hummed, and the rhythm of honest work filled the air. I thought about the lesson Shanghai had taught me all those years ago. Fluency isn't just about speaking another language, it's about knowing when to listen, when to speak, and when silence would mean complicity. That day I chose not to stay silent, and it saved not just my career, but the integrity of the company itself.